It's gonna have to be a lifestyle switch.
Did everyone spot the attachment? I dropped it in the WhatsApp group. I've also popped it in the shared file. Come on, brain, wake up. I've also popped it in the shared file in the membership as well. So you've got options in there, but it's what we're going to be going through on the screen. But you can also print it off. After the front cover, it's predominantly black and white. I think it might be all black and white. So you can always print it without the front cover, but I just thought it was pretty to start with a bit of colour. But mid-year review, we're also going to want to have out our goals for the year, all those kind of bits and pieces. So obviously I've got my planner, Happy Lifestyle planner out. I've also got my Trello up, all those kind of bits and pieces. Actually, I've just closed my Trello by mistake, so let's reopen that. Always good. And as we've got quite a lot to get through this evening, we will jump in quickly so we can get through it all. I even put the year on the front. So we are 2023 and it's our mid-year review. And look at us, like literally it's 2 days before the middle of the year. So that works out perfectly. And you've got the thing I'm screen sharing is the PDF that you can print off, that's in the WhatsApp and also in the shared folder. I put it in 2 places in the shared folder. I always try and put things in where they feel logical to be. So it's in the goal setting, and I think it's also in time management. And it's basically in every folder it feels logical for it to be in. It's in there. So we shall start with this one. And the first question is looking at, it's a bit of a journaling question. There's lots of scoring and things involved, so it's not all writing, but the first one we're going to be looking at is summarising so far in 1 to 2 sentences how you feel like the year has been for you. You could lean into how it's felt, if it's been a bit more of an emotional thing. Do you feel like there's been big achievements and things? But what really stands out in a short summary, you've got 1 to 2 sentences to explain how the year has been for you so far. So I haven't got a clock timer because I also want to share the PDF, but I will have a little timer on at my end. So we'll just have a couple of minutes on the clock to go over that. There we go. First question. So can you hear me now, Davina? I'm talking, I'm gonna keep talking to see. Can anyone else hear me? If you let me know in the chat, or if you want to mute so that we can.
I can hear you.
You can.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yay, cool. Yeah, there is. I was like, no, there's no music playing, and then you was like, oh, maybe it was you couldn't hear me either. So we're going to move on to the second section. So the mid-year review is split a bit like I do the weekly review. Sort of the first half is about reviewing, and then we've got setting up a little bit of an action plan in the second bit. So I want you to go through the key areas. I've sort of picked out 8 key areas of life that really help us to build a strong foundation of getting things done and having energy. And hopefully a good sort of mindset, and giving them a little score of 1 to 10, and then we're going to come up with a bit of an action plan later on for how we've scored certain things in life. So we'll just have a couple of minutes to go through these. So just giving them a rating of 1 out of 10. It's about your satisfaction, not about how the world perceives you should be satisfied, or about how society deems we should be satisfied with things, but what is to your satisfaction on a rating from 1 to 10. Then if we continue scrolling on down, we've got, if you could change one thing in your life right now, what would it be and why? If you could change one thing in your life right now, what would it be and why?
Only one?
Just one.
Okay.
So there is a book literally called The One Thing. And it's one of those books, it's a brilliant concept, beautifully written, but it could have easily been a blog post or a slightly extended article instead of a book. So it's got a lot of filler in it. And the basic gist of it is still worth a good read, but if you've got a long book wish list, then maybe look for an abbreviated version or a sum up. But in short, this guy claims and that you should do the one thing, that by doing that one thing, everything else would become either easier or irrelevant. So if you did this one thing, there'd be loads of things in your life that you then wouldn't need to do. Like it would change, like it would cut out things, or it would make them significantly easier to do. Realistically, it's very hard to find the one thing that we do next. We talk about in business, we'll talk about like what's the next step, what's going to be the next needle mover. In our personal life, it's like what's going to have the biggest impact or be the most productive or bring us the most joy. But in the end, everything very much interconnects. So if I take my one thing that I straight away jumped to when I thought of that question was energy. It, and that is very much reflected in my 1 to 2 sentences, which said I'm very tired. Just of everything, very tired. The first 6 months of this year have been very tiring. So it's not surprising that the one thing I would like to change is my energy. And that will also interconnect with lots of other areas. It's obviously not as simple as I'm just going to check. I'm going to click my fingers and magically change my energy. It's not. I'm going to change my phone provider or change my bank. If you've written something like that, great. I wish I was you and it was really simple. But most of the time, there's going to be something that's a bit bigger. Even if it's like I want to change jobs, that requires a lot of steps. Even changing houses and things requires a lot of steps. It's rare that the one thing we want to change in our lives is something as simple as like a bank or an internet provider. Actually, changing your internet provider is very complicated because they try and tie you into contracts, don't they? And you can never get through to the right person. But why I like doing this towards the beginning of the review is then keeping a sort of a true focus, your true north on what is the biggest key thing for the next 6 months. If you couldn't do anything else for the next 6 months, that would be the thing that you would want to focus on, that you would want to get done first. That's going to be the thing that would have the biggest overall impact, because it's in this imaginary world where you can only change one thing. That is it. So this front page now gives you a key view of where you are and what you're looking at as being your biggest problem. If it's the one thing you want to change above all things, it's probably your biggest issue, biggest problem, the thing that's hindering your happiness the most is that one thing. So for me, I'm like, yes, mine's energy, and I then can look up to my out of 10 scores, and I can very much see the things that are going to be having the biggest impact on my energy are the things that have got the lowest scores currently. So that's why we focus in on that one thing, because as we move through, we realize there's so many different areas of life that we could be getting done in the next 6 months, but the next 6 months will fly by. And if we try and fix everything, we end up fixing nothing. So keep that, now you've decided on that one true thing, keep that in mind. There'll have been a reason why that came to you first and why you settled on that one. So keep that in mind as we work through the other steps. If we move on to the next page, so on to page 2, we are back to scoring. Nice and easy one to write the numbers in. Now, obviously, I couldn't write your core values in because we all have different core values. So you'll need to grab your own core values list. And spoiler alert, you'll also need your life goals affirmation list. I think most of you guys have done that. If you are watching this on replay and you haven't done that, life goal affirmations, there's a short course in the membership. You can do it in about an hour, and I bring it up a lot. So if you haven't done it, I would highly recommend getting that one done. It is very, very useful for anything planning, organisation, time management, knowing what's important to you in life, all those kind of wonderful things. There's a red sticky sparkly gem on my book for some reason. Get that off. So we are going to go in writing your 10 core values first. I always say 8 to 10. I have got a full 10, so your 8 to 10 core values, and then go ahead and the same. It's scoring to your satisfaction, so it's out 1 to 10 to your satisfaction. Do you feel like you're meeting your needs in those areas of your core value? So you might have core values that are more important to you than others. So if there's one that's less important to you, you'll probably find it easier to reach a level 10. Something that's more important to you, it's probably much harder to reach a level 10 and be fully satisfied with that you're meeting your own needs in it, for example. So I'm going to put another couple of minutes on my little clock. So I've got another 3 minutes on the clock this end, and we'll go through writing your core values and then give them a rating out of 10. This is based on the last 6 months, so how you feel across the last 6 months. So we're going to move on to similar format, but using our life goal affirmations. Again, it's your satisfaction, how far, like how comfortable you are that you are currently meeting your needs with those life goal affirmations, remembering that these are your future self, like these are long term, so they might not be things that you've achieved yet, but are you moving in the right direction towards those? Have you given what you can in the last 6 months to achieving these things, or do you feel like, actually no, I've not given that enough time, I've not given that enough energy, I've let my focus wander away from these key things that are the person I want to be showing up as in the world, this person that I want to be and know I am. Have you personally given what you can to them? And also I think it's important to consider what life has thrown at you in the last 6 months. So if it's been a particularly turbulent 6 months, you giving 100% will look very different to if you've had a very calm 6 months. If you are going through a time where you've got less available time, maybe you've been looking after someone that's poorly, you've been poorly yourself, or finances have been low for whatever reason, then the resources you've had will have been different to maybe a year where you've been very financially abundant or you've had lots of time to spare. And therefore giving 100% would be very different in those times. But it's about how are you happy with the amount, with what you've given to that life goal affirmation? Like, what's your personal rating? Don't think about how someone else would judge that life goal affirmation, what they would give you out of 10 for whether you are being that thing or having that thing in your life. It's very much about your review and your perspective of it. And I've talked over my timer, so I'm going to take that back a little bit because otherwise I'll never write mine down. So life goal affirmations and their score, giving them a rating out of 10. And this is on page 2. I've put the 10 spaces in there, but not forgetting that our life goal affirmations can be 8 to 10. So if you've got to the bottom of that and gone, hang on a minute, there's 2 more spaces left, it might mean that you've got 8 or 9 instead of the full 10. I'm an 8er, because we've got those 2 extra priorities that we can add in if we so wish. I find that one quite particularly interesting, considering some of the areas that had very low scores on page 1. A lot more high scores on page 2, which is just interesting. This is why we do these reviews. So moving on to our next page. So I also quite like, you can do those scoring out of 10 with the life balance charts, but I thought just because of time wise within the sort of workshop and trying to get through both sections today, so with the life balance charts, you would colour in the shade, so that there are 4 or 5 copies of that in the back of the planner. So if you want to have a bit more time to contemplate, maybe you're struggling to feel where you are with those, or you'd like a bit more of a visual representation, you can do and or your life goal affirmations or your core values in there, and you colour in the segments. So if it was a 1, you just colour in the very centre, and then you colour out as the number increases. And it's quite nice to do each one in a different colour. Shading in is quite therapeutic in itself, but you get this beautiful visual representation of those numbers as well. So that can be, I guess, some additional homework. I think there's some printable life balance charts in the membership as well, or just give me a shout if you can't find them, and I can always email them over or drop them in the WhatsApp group as well. But that can give you a lovely visual representation of where life is currently balancing with those coloured sections and things. And it can be quite nice to have that visual comparison, to do it maybe every sort of quarter throughout the year, sort of in addition to just having a yearly review. Those are having that sort of a bit more of a balance between your core values, or a bit more of a balance between your life goal affirmations is important to you at the moment. Having that physical visual can be very helpful. Right, we're moving on to doing a bit of a mid-year review of where we are with our goals. So you will need to grab your yearly goals list now. So we're going to do personal goals first. So we're going to write each one of the personal goals in, and then I thought we could have a little bit of shading. So you can either circle it or shade it, or maybe you've got a number somewhere else in between. But how far along you feel like you're completed with this task, I thought it'd be quite fun to have a little shaded one. Because originally I was just going to talk this through, and then in co-working this morning, I suddenly decided I wanted a full worksheet, and I'm really glad I did. So yeah, you can do a little bit of shading on there if you so wish, or you can circle the number, or you can just draw a line if you prefer to. I think I have a bright pink pen to do a line and some shading. And then we're looking at issues, barriers and concerns for completing that personal goal within the time frame. So I'm going to try, I can't do music share at the same time as sharing the PDF, but I think, has everyone got access to see either the PDF or they've printed off a copy? Is it going to be problematic for anyone if I turn the PDF off on the screen for a bit, because we need a bit more time to do this? I thought it'd be nice to have a bit of backing music. Stupid thing won't let me do 2 at a time, which is really annoying. Switch over to relaxed or upbeat. I think we need upbeat, otherwise we're all going to nod off, aren't we? Just the way it goes. And we don't need a full 15 minutes, but we will have 9 minutes 50 on the clock. So to work through your thought, and this you can always circle back to this afterwards, but I think it's nice to have at least started some of it during the session. So I'll have 9 minutes and 50 seconds on the clock to do our personal goals and how far along we feel like we are with completing them, and then what we perceive are issues, barriers and concerns completing them at this point in time. didn't mean that to be quite so. Oh, and I left myself unmuted. That's always good. Okay, I didn't swear or sneeze or anything like that. So that is our personal goals. I'm going to jump back to, where are we? That was probably a little bit longer than we needed. Where are we? Go back to 7. Let's give it 7 minutes. 7 minutes for the next one. Although I guess professional is a little bit harder to do. So we are going to. Now I've got a lovely little. I like the little shading in of the percentages. I quite like that idea. Clever on me. It's going to be one of my highlights of the first 6 months of the year. Shading in sections. It's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. That's fine. So we're going to move on to our professional goals. So remembering to pop in those issues and barriers that we see, because that is part of us planning ahead and making our action plan for the next 6 months. Like, what other issues and concerns to completing these things are popping up. So professional goals. Let's go. Just going to mute that there quickly for a second. If, like me, you are an avid Trello user, so each one of my goals I've got broken down. So I've got all my goals in a Trello list, and then I've also got them broken down by personal, professional, and then family, home, friends, which is how I teach them and how I live them. And then within each of those ones, I've got a checklist for each one. And so what I'm actually able to see is Trello will literally tell me what percentage is complete. So I can go into one and be like, oh yeah, that one literally says I've only completed 17%. That one says I've completed 75%. That one says I've completed 50%. That one says I've completed 0. Like that. So if you've got Trello, do look out for that. If you've got those little checklists, it is the system that I was teaching and speaking about in the Trello when we did the Trello session. So if you follow that, then there should be somewhere that's actually giving you a bit of a hint. And it might be that you've done more than then you've ticked off, or then the bullet points, and you might be like, actually, I think my percentage is a little bit higher than that, but it can give you a bit of a gauge as well. Fabulous. And then I don't know whether I'm getting faster or I'm being overly optimistic. Let's try a 6-minute one. The last bit, we're never going to get onto our action plan. So moving on to our family, home, friend goals, exactly the same process, going through each one, marking off, so we've got a visual of how much of that goal we've completed for the year, and then also looking at what issues, barriers and concerns to completing we might have at the moment. There's no way to live fade the volume out. Like on the other videos, I have it pre-recorded, so it just fades out at the end. But I'm trying to fade out on this just doesn't work. Just got a cut on my finger. I don't know where that came from either. Anyway, very aware that the time is flying by. Because we only do this once a year. I don't have set slides with the set time things on, which is yeah, we'll fly by. But don't worry, we will do a slightly abridged version of the monthly goal setting so that we've still done something on that, but without it disappearing completely. And I will put that in a separate video. So there's 2 videos up, one for this one if you want to go back over it. So moving on to page 6, and this is where we start setting up a bit more of an action plan for the next 6 months. So this is the bit that will particularly might influence, that doesn't sound like very good English, Jess, will particularly influence your monthly goal setting. So one of the key reasons why we needed to do this one first before we did the goal setting for July. We are going to be grabbing page 1 and looking at those key scores that you wrote and grabbing our 3 lowest scores. Now, if a lot of your scores were similar, so I've got 3 that were particularly lower than all of the others on mine, so that makes it a little bit easier. I can just grab those 3. But if you have more that are really close together, maybe you have all of them are the same kind of number, look at the ones that would have the most positive impact, and also the ones that you would find easiest to improve upon. Because if there's 2 that are at 5 and one of them is going to be easier to improve, it is better to do that one. And then you've got the energy and motivation to do more things and maybe move on to the next one. If you've got one that's a 5 that is particularly hard to do and you try and do that one first, you may burn yourself out and think, oh, I can't bother to work on any of the others now. So factor in the positive impact. It might be that it's slightly harder to do, but improving that number would have much more of a positive impact on everything else. Maybe one of those is your number one thing. When we talked about the one thing you would change, what of the things on that list, if they're all 6s or all 8s, which one of them connects most strongly to the one thing you would like to change? And that will help direct you into picking the lowest 3, the 3 that you should work on. Or nice and easy for me, I've got three 3s. So I've got 3 that are significantly lower than the others, or the others have got fairly good scores, so I can pick those 3. And then I love the number 3, don't I? So we're going for three options, and then we're going to set 3 action steps that we can do for each one. They don't need to be massive things. Like you don't want to be overwhelmed. In the same way when I talk about steps with our goal setting or with our daily things, each individual step needs to not feel hugely overwhelming in itself. But these are things that you've got 6 months to spread them out over. So what's overwhelming to achieve in one day is very different to what might feel overwhelming to achieve over the next 6 months as well. So it's good to consider that when you're setting your parameters of what you think a step should be. So hopefully you started while I've been talking, and I will put more than that. No, not as much as that. More than that. There we go, just under 3 minutes. I'll put 3 minutes on the clock and to do a little bit on this, and then if you need to circle back, you can circle back after. slightly better timing. Not quite finished mine, but I'm nearly there. I realised we forgot to do the one above it. I skipped a whole section. So we'll jump back to that one. So at the top of page 6, we've got one sentence to summarise how you want to feel by the end. Well, it doesn't need to be one sentence, but similar to the first question that we did on page 1, is summarise how you want to feel by the end of the year. So hopefully you all spotted that on a piece of paper and didn't skip over it like I did. I did fill it out, I just forgot to say anything. Not very helpful. Bad Jess. So yeah, summarise how you want to feel by the end of the year, and then move on to picking the 3 lowest scores and coming up with your action steps. And it might be that you need to ponder that and have a little think about it over the next couple of days, and then come back to filling in what your action steps are going to be for those ones. I'm going to flick back to the PDF so I don't miss something again. If it's on the screen, hopefully I won't miss so much. Let's scroll down. So there it is. Summarise how you want to feel by the end of the year. And then here we've got our breakdown for our 3-step, our 3 key areas, and then our 3 action steps. So moving on to our core values. What I'm going to do, just because we're a little bit short of time, is I'm going to talk through this, and then if you want to be filling it out while I'm talking, or come back to it afterwards, that's probably going to be a better one, or keep doing it while I'm talking. So we're going to fill out our core values. Despite having the same core values and having done mine years ago, I still need the list to copy it off because I can't spell for my life. So we're going to be looking at one step for each of our core values. So just one thing that we can do. So there's lots of connecting back, I think, with the yearly mid-yearly review, because we've already got goals in place. We've already got plans and things coming up. We don't want to suddenly overload ourselves with 1,000,001 more things to do. It's little steps. What's one other little action step? And chances are you've already got things on your goals lists for the year that will support these core values. And it doesn't matter if you're a repeater, if you're like, well, actually one of my goals for the year really supports this key core value, that can still be your action step, just because you're already like working on it, already doing it. So example, faith, for me, my action step is finding a new church. I think I found one today, but my action step is going to be finding a new church, which I very much already knew I needed to do. I don't just have to come up with something new because I'm doing a review and action plan. I can just write down what's in my head, what I've already thought of, or what I've already written down elsewhere. It doesn't have to be, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We don't have to constantly come up with new ideas. So we can just come up with, be like, oh yeah, no, okay, so yeah, faith, yeah, my action step, I already know what I'm going to do. I'm already started on it. I already, so one of mine is growth and learning. Now I'm already at 9. I gave mine a 9. So big part of that, hitting a 10, will be completing my read at least 15 books this year. That supports my growth and learning. That's all I need to do. It's an action step I'm going to write down, but it's already something I'm doing. It's already something on my goals list. It doesn't mean that I can't use it again. It's not cheating to use it again, as it were. In fact, what is great is when we've managed at the beginning of the year to consistently support our core values. Like our goals that we come up with should be a reflection of our core values. They should be a reflection of our life goal affirmations. We should constantly be doing and being the things that that matter to us. So you might be like, I'm just acknowledging an action step that I'm already taking. And you might go, actually, I've got a 10 for this, so my action step is going to be maintain. To maintain the current situation is an action step in itself as well. So don't feel like these have to be like massive, groundbreaking, completely new, adding in a whole load of new things we've got to do in the next 6 months. That's not what this is about at all. It's just making sure, it's that little check-in to make sure that we are still working towards being who we want to be, showing up in how we want to be, and getting to live the lives that we want to live, whatever that looks like for us, because obviously that looks very different for each person. So I'm just writing in my core values there, and then I will circle back to my action steps, because I certainly can't talk and write anything complicated and profound, or doesn't need to be complicated. I've just done a whole spiel about how it doesn't need to be complicated and profound, haven't I? But I know I've got some easy ones. I'll put those in. I've got all the windows open because it's very hot, so you can hear when my people ring my neighbour's doorbell and have a chat with them in the background. Although I think Zoom's pretty good at siphoning out background noise, isn't it? And then we're going to do the same thing for our life goal affirmations, remembering everything that I've just said, because that applies to all of these as well. It doesn't need to be groundbreaking. Yes, they can be crossovers. Oh, I've realised that I put the when column on one page and not on the second one. I will edit that. So page 8, if you haven't yet printed it, I will upload, I'll edit it and share it later. Put a little bit star there, but I've realised the action steps, life goal affirmation, there's no when column. So yes, we want to be, I think once we're halfway through, you can maybe be giving it a month. It might be that there's something that you can give a specific date to, which is brilliant. But even if you're just being like, this action step is going to happen in December, or this action step is going to happen in August. So it's like finding a new church. We're moving in July. It's going to be a bit chaotic. So to be honest, that's an August onwards thing. So that we've found a new church before school starts and things. So make sure that you're popping in a when, so that it doesn't just become a thing that you never do. That'll be easier if you've already got it as a goal. So yeah, apologies, I've missed a when column off. But like I said, it was, what was it, Michelle, about 10:30 this morning, I decided I wanted to create a worksheet to go with today's session. So there's that. So yeah, writing in those life goal affirmations and then deciding on those action steps. And it's also good to keep sort of leaning back and look at the page as a whole. Like there might be one area that you're like, I'm going to go hard in this area. It's going to get a big action step, because maybe you gave it a lower rating out of 10, and you're like, I want to do something bigger for this one. And maybe like the ones that you're like, oh, that's a 9. I have a teeny tiny action step. I want to work on it being a 10, or if it's an 8, I want to work on it being a 9. But I would rather save some time for the things that are currently feeling a bit lower. And maybe you're like, actually, that's a bit low at the moment, and I haven't got it in me to work on it. So I'm going to do a little thing for it. It's about checking in with yourself and being realistic with what you want to do with that. Like, what have you got to give towards that life goal affirmation, or towards that core value. So that is page 8. And then again, making sure that you are popping in your when. So which month are you going to do that? If you count the weeks, which week you're going to do that, etc., etc. I really should have done these on 2 separate nights. You live and learn. You live and learn. What I'm going to do, I got 2, 3, 4. Probably would have been quicker had I not done the worksheet, but it's more fun with the worksheet, isn't it? So then we are going to go into our action steps for each of those goals. So this is running parallel. Basically, the first half of the workbook runs parallel with the second half of the workbook. So you want to be grabbing up your personal goal sheet. So let's do this one as an example. You'll be grabbing up your personal goal sheet, writing in your personal goal, and then what are going to be the specific, be very specific action steps to overcome those issues, barriers and concerns that you had. So for example, on one of mine, I had no issues and barriers and concerns with completing it. I'm comfortably halfway through, and it's a little and often goal. That's my reading at least 15 books this year. Fine, I don't need it. I can just put an NA or a strike through. Like, again, it doesn't need to be massive earth-shattering steps to move it forward. But what are the specific steps that you can take to overcome any barriers that you observed? So let's have a little bit of time. Let's do 3 minutes on this page, just so we've started and done a bit on it. Let me scroll through. So there you go. I want to put the so we'll do just 3 minutes to get going on this one. So we've started on this one as well. So popping in those personal goals and then looking at any concerns, issues, barriers we came up with on page 3, and what are going to be our action steps to overcome them. There's also, I've just started doing this one myself, but it's also important to note there might be crossover with these action steps. In the end, we want as few things to do as possible. So use the example of my second personal goal is to drink more water. Obviously, there's more details to it than that. Drink more water, but also one of my 3 lowest scoring areas on the first page was hydration, nutrition and hydration. So my action steps to improve that are going to be the same as the action steps I need to take to improve that goal. I'm just hammering it home a little bit harder because I get to write it out twice, which obviously shows that it's a really important area that needs some attention. So do not worry if you've got crossover between goals and then also the areas that you talked about earlier that you've set action steps for. Crossovers are great. That means you've got less to do, and we like having less to do. And then, of course, we do the same for our professional goals and our family and friends ones. So do keep going through those if you want to while I'm speaking. But I'm going to jump to the last page. Then we've got 45 minutes to go through a condensed version of our monthly goal setting. Unless people would prefer me to do that tomorrow morning, I'm quite happy to do an hour tomorrow morning instead. If people, let me just check I'm saying that, but then actually what's in my calendar for tomorrow morning? No, complete brain freeze. Oh no, it wants me to verify it's me. Stupid thing. On my phone, see if it'll bring it up. So would we like to spend a bit more? Yeah, that's fine. Actually, I had a client call that's can't make it now. So I can do a 9 o'clock tomorrow for the monthly goal setting if people would like to spend a bit more time on this one now. If you let me know in the comments, and then I'll put the recording up. Or if you would rather do a speed version now, let me know. Yes to what, Michael? Yes, do it tomorrow. So just put tomorrow or now in the chat with your preference. Either one will be recorded and I'll be able to put it up. But if you'd like to slow this one down and jump over. I've just got one yes. You're all busy writing and focused. All gone to sleep. I mean, the options are endless. Actually, it only says cool. Well, we'll do that. We will slow down a little bit on this one. What should we get to? Much nicer. Where's my page gone? But we'll do it as a split session. So I will finish up this and I'll get the recording for this one up tonight so that you can jump back into it. That's not a problem. So moving on to professional. So grab that. So the sheet we're on is page 10. And then the one you are referencing should be page 4. So grab page 10 and then grab page 4. We are going to pop in those professional goals. Scroll down here. Our professional goals section here, and we're popping in our professional goals and then coming up with what are going to be our key action steps to make sure we are moving these ones forward also. And then last but not least, moving on to page 11, for our family, friends and home related goals. That will be what referencing what you reviewed on page 5. So page 5 helps you review page 5 to help create your page 11. So looking at what are your barriers going to be, and how you can overcome them to make sure you hit those goals. The other thing I really like about doing it this way is you are repeatedly writing out your core values, your life goal affirmations, your personal goals, your professional goals, and your family, work family, and your family, friends, and home goals. And it's just that little bit of repetition, and writing all those things out that make you just check in again, remind yourself of all those things, and make them sort of keep them fresh in your mind, and that I think is absolutely vital if we are going to achieve those things. So we're on to our final two, on our final two questions on our last page. So just run over these, and then I will leave you to ponder them. So the first one is, what could potentially stop you from achieving your action steps, and what will you do to avoid these barriers? So this is thinking in a more general aspect. Obviously, the likelihood is that these will link back to that one thing at the beginning. And I can straight away tell you that mine definitely will. So what would potentially stop me from achieving my action steps is 100% going to be energy. It's having the energy to do them. Looking at how the year's gone so far, what I've got left to do. My biggest thing is going to be energy, and what are the steps that I can do to avoid these barriers, and so I'm not overcommitting to things, making sure I just do my action steps first. I prioritize the things I've decided to do first. So take a bit of time to think that through, because those are the excuses that we will tell ourselves day in, day out, that will stop us from actually getting those things done. They can very quickly become excuses instead of actual reasons. Whereas if we give them a chance, and we give a chance to try and find a solution for them, that's when we're going to be able to move forward. So thinking in advance, like, what could potentially stop me from achieving these things, and what am I going to do? How am I going to prepare myself in advance to make sure that these barriers don't come to, I can't pronounce this word properly, but don't come to fruition. That this barrier won't build, it won't form. I'm not going to let it, because I've seen it in the distance, and I'm going to make sure I'm going to take a slightly different route, or I'm going to make sure that I've got the tools to get through that barrier or get past that barrier. And it's a lot easier to do that if you identify it further back. Just like a pony would find it easier if they can see the jump ahead and they can build up to it to do that leap over it. Or an explorer can see that mountain so that they can decide to take the path off and go round the mountain instead of trying to go through the mountain. Or bring the right climbing shoes so they can climb up the mountain. If you can see it from that bit further back, once you're like face up against that wall or that jump or that mountain, it's a lot harder to see the routes around it, or to see a better way over it. Or maybe you have to backtrack to get the right tools, so you might have to backtrack and learn a skill before you can then go and climb the metaphorical mountain. So it's always better to try and spot where these hurdles are going to be ahead of time and come up with solutions. And it's not about talking yourself out of them, it's about finding those solutions instead. And then how would you feel if you achieved everything in your action plan by the end of the year? And write this, as we do with life goal affirmations, as if it's already happened. You've got to the end of the year, you've achieved all your action steps, and you're looking back on your year and thinking, wow, like, what's going to be when we do that review, which, yes, we do towards the end of November, so that we've got Christmas to ourselves. How are you going to feel when you look back at the end of November, when we do like the yearly review and goal setting, when you look back and be like, wow, yes, I got this done, like, end this on a positive. Now we've put at the bottom, together we can do this, because we are a community, we're doing this together, we're there for supporting each other. So don't forget that, because we can feel very lonely when we're trying to achieve the lives we want to achieve. But yeah, spend a bit of time journaling into both of those last questions. I will get this uploaded into the membership as well, so you've got access to it to go back over it. And I will be on tomorrow morning. I'll do a separate recording tomorrow at 9 a.m. to put up for, what can I do tomorrow? I can't do tomorrow evening, unfortunately. So I'll do it tomorrow during the day. And I'll pop in the WhatsApp if I find another slot, because I know, Bina, you said you can't make tomorrow. I don't know if that was that time or just in general. But I will pop I'll pop a message in the WhatsApp with when else I can do it, and we'll do that as a separate one, because yeah, this.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Yes. Don't worry about me, because I won't actually be able to do tomorrow anyway. So I will go into the membership and just do follow the audio that you post. So don't worry about me in terms of timing. Just do what works for you and everyone else.
No worries. And we've also got weekly review on Saturday morning as well at 9. So
yeah, it's difficult for me when I'm back across. The weekly reviews are difficult for me at the moment to jump onto at 9 o'clock on Saturdays now, because my schedule has changed. But I tend to just go in and do it generally anyway. So the day that my schedule isn't so packed, then I'll be able to jump on. Do you know, I have a question for you actually, Jess, because you're a guru on this stuff. My challenge is around consistency.
Mm-hmm.
And for the past few weeks, I've just been inconsistent. You've noticed, for instance, I don't even post in the mornings necessarily on the morning group thing anymore. And it's about consistency. That's been my challenge for a long time. So that's the thing I put down, that what's one thing that would be a game changer for me, and consistency would be it. So in terms of action steps, I struggled really with trying to create an action step that would allow me to maintain that consistency. Because how does one do that? I mean, if you look at my Google Calendar, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Time blocks, the whole shebang. I don't follow it, but that's a different story.
No, that's a long answer.
Mm-hmm.
I think would be good as a whole video. So I'm going to write that down.
There you go then. Another idea for you.
Yeah. Because my first thought, my first feeling when people talk about consistency is starting by reframing what consistency is. Because we are in a world of dailies, aren't we, and hourlies, where we feel like we have to be, it's that kind of repetition to be consistent. We see it a lot with social media, or post daily must be consistent. But actually with social media, what the algorithm appreciates is everyone's consistency different. So if your consistency is every Monday, as long as you keep that every Monday consistency, it's happy. And there's a lot that we can learn from that in our day-to-day lives. So starting to reframe it, because when we reframe it, we're able to meet that level of consistency better, which will feed our motivation, which will help us to stay consistent, instead of beating ourselves up that we're not doing the thing daily. Oh, I'm only managing to do it weekly, or I only do that thing monthly. Or if that, you can then use sort of that motivation of oh great, I've done it weekly. I might not do it every day, but I've done it weekly, and that's my new consistency, and that will actually feed into helping you stay consistent moving forward. So that's from more of a mindset point of view. But then, so I have all my Google Calendar scheduled out and things. I have alarms, I have timers, I have signs up. I think we massively underestimate how most of the human race need that extra level of support, because there's these few magical people that either don't need to do that or aren't telling us they need to do that. I think for ages, I probably felt years ago that I couldn't say, well, yeah, teach organisation and time management, but I have so many timers and alarms set to remind me to do those things. But actually that's so part of it. So I think don't be afraid to add in the extra support. And I think it's noticing that something's fallen by the wayside. So my biggest consistency issue is water. It's drinking water. I suck at drinking water. I'm absolutely terrible. So I've realised that not only do I have to gamify it, which is just like it's like a basic life need, water, hydration, and it's not like I remember to drink like squash instead. I might have a coffee, but I will forget to drink anything for the entirety of the day. So when I say water, I mean most liquid.
Anything. Yeah.
Unless it's highly caffeinated, I'm not going to remember to drink it. So I have to gamify it. So I have to download different apps, to swap from different apps to do it, or change the sound of my alarm, or slightly change the times that Alexa will shout at me to drink water. I've put as one of my action steps, I'm going to get hydro drops, which is basically just little drops of squash, but they're little drops. And you get this mix packet, and you can just drop a drop in the water, and it's got a fun name, and that will help me be consistent for a period of time. Then I will notice that the consistency drops off, and I'll be like, right, what can I do again to refeed this? And then the other one is feeding that motivation behind what is you're trying to do. So tapping into, okay, so I've noticed I've stopped being consistent with this thing. Why did I want to do it in the first place? You then may notice that goal or that thing is no longer right for you. which is nice and easy. You've naturally become inconsistent because it's a waste of your time. Or you go, okay, this was the reason why, and you can push into that reason. So it might be that one of the things you're trying to be consistent on is sleeping at a sensible time. You've got inconsistent, you're going to bed later and later. So you're like, right, I'm going to read 3 blogs about the benefits of sleep. I'm going to feed my motivation to improve my sleep pattern. So what is it that you could do that would reignite that need, that will, that want to be consistent in that thing? And it's not just going to be one and done, as with my water. As it is with my sleep, that Why We Sleep book is brilliant, and that has so much detail in it. For me, I had a good couple of years where I slept, like had a really good sleep routine. Recently it's gone a bit wonky because I'm highly dehydrated because I'm not drinking enough water. So again, I need to refuel my motivation, refuel my willpower, by understanding again, so why was it that I was trying to go to bed earlier? Why was it that I was like trying to have a nice morning routine? Like, why was it that I wanted to do that? Because that will help feed that willpower and that motivation to stay consistent. But it's like we consistently have to feed the consistency.
Yeah. I get you.
Yeah, it's not, there's no easy answer. I hope there's some magical sparkle dust that I could sprinkle on it, but I don't, unfortunately. Which is why, yeah, I think it would be a whole good talk in itself. And I think, yeah, having these things like the check-ins, so we do the weekly review we've just done for the last few weeks as a live, because a few people had said that they'd lost their consistency with it. We've got 2 more weeks of it, and then I won't do it weekly over the summer, and then I'll probably pick a different slot in September. It will be a sort of Friday, Saturday. It'll be towards the end of the week. But we're moving. The moment little one does a kids club on Saturday morning, so I drop her into kids club and I go and sit in a cafe and do the weekly review. But that I won't necessarily have that time slot. My time slot might change and things. So yeah. I'll review it. I'll review the time slot of the weekly review in September. I'll do some, and it might be that every other week I can do it live or something. I don't know what her routine's going to be. And Saturday mornings, I know my partner has a thing that he does. He has a run that he does every Saturday morning to set him up for the weekend. So I have her on Saturday mornings. So it might mean I need to do Friday evenings. But also then, yeah, playing around with it, so occasionally moving when I do my weekly review helps me stay more consistent with my weekly review, because I'm not becoming like a monotonous thing. Like when I got my new drinking water bottle, tell I need to go and drink some water. When I got my new drinking water bottle, I was so much more consistent for like 2 months. I was really consistent with it. And then in theory, I should probably go and get myself another water bottle, but I don't want to buy anything else. Because that would help fuel it, like getting a new set of pens if writing was one of your goals. I mean, buying a new laptop if typing on your computer is a new goal is probably not feasibly possible. But there are changing the background on the computer screen with a big reminder to tell you to focus on the thing you're trying to do. It's like mixing it up and tapping into anything that's going to help fuel that motivation and the willpower, and those are the things that fuel the consistency.
Yeah, that you give me some good ideas. Thank you for that, especially around setting alarms and stuff like that. I don't necessarily always do that. And I think what I'm finding is that at the moment I'm letting others dictate my time, especially at work, because I work in an environment where everything's urgent. So it's one of those environments where everything's urgent. It's taking me a while to work out that everything can't be urgent in this place. But so it's I'm constantly firefighting, and it then means that other things that I need to work on don't get done.
And that also escalates. So as people are like, well, it'll always be dealt with, it's always dealt with quickly, go to this person because I know they'll be on it, they'll treat it urgently. If you slowly start phasing down and being like, okay, so you're giving me this urgent thing to do, can you explain to me why it's urgent? What's the specific deadline and why is that reason? Suddenly people are like, oh, oh, I've got to justify myself. Well, actually, maybe it isn't, like question when it's brought to you urgent as to why and what the actual deadline is.
Mm.
So you also start to get that good reputation for having boundaries.
Yeah, definitely.
So if you want something done, ask a busy person. Well, they're probably busy because they haven't got strong boundaries, and that's why they're going to do it, and it's worthwhile asking them.
Yeah. But
It's
just the nature of my work means that it just can't get done. I mean, ended up with, like, since I got back, 3 contracts that I need to draft opinions on. And it's not drafting an opinion isn't like it takes a while, it takes doing legal research, it takes a while to do. So it's not, and these are like 60, 70-page documents that are dumped on you.
ouch.
And you're like, well, okay, so if all 3 are urgent, there's limited time, I will have to sleep. Despite the fact that people don't think people need sleep, I definitely need my sleep to function. So it then means that other things that literally I've not posted on my Facebook page for a while, for the best part of this month, really, since the beginning of this month. So it's probably another thing I need to look at in terms of the timing. I had a different schedule where I could do it during the daytime. And now it's not so. Anyway, yeah. So, but thank you for that. I appreciate that. It's helped, to generate ideas around how I can refocus. And I think a lot of it is also going to losing the why. Sometimes you lose the reason why you wanted to do something in the first place because you get caught up in the mundane.
That's why I love the life goal affirmation system. Because whenever I'm setting a goal, whenever I'm planning my week, it's actually, they're typed out in the first column on my Trello boards. Every time I open up my to-do list they're like bright highlighted colors.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got my life goal affirmations because that's who I want to be and how I want to show up in the world. So if what I'm doing day to day doesn't link back to that, then what am I doing with my life? Like that's
bottom line.
Yeah, that's it. And it's just like if what someone's trying to ask of my time doesn't connect to that, then I kind of don't want to do it. Don't want to do it.
Yeah.
It's it needs to fit in and connect in with that. And it's difficult to adjust when you work in a work environment. It can be sort of a gentle process of putting those boundaries in place because people will push back if they're not used to you having them. They will push back. It doesn't mean that you're wrong for putting them in place just because somebody pushes back.
Yeah,
as long as you're doing them like for the right reasons and things. So I've had people that have been like, oh, I'd like to start an hour early. I had it with one job where I said, actually, instead of working Monday to Friday, being in on a Saturday would be really beneficial. And actually Monday is probably going to be quite a quiet day for me. And also it means that there's one day of the week where there's one less person in the office and one day a week where there's where there is a person in the office when there normally wouldn't be. And they were like, yeah, well, actually that makes loads of sense. So my weekend was Sunday, Monday. It made more sense for what I did for the business. It made more sense for the business. And I presented it in a way, it wasn't just because I wanted one. It was back when like you basically couldn't do anything on the weekend days because everything was shut. I wanted a weekday off work to do things like the bank and the doctor and the dentist and all those kind of things.
Yeah.
A relaxing weekend day of Sunday. So go out on a Saturday night still, have my Sunday to relax and then get things done on the Monday. But I presented it to the business as if, hey Chris, this will work better. And also then I starting later as well. So I did a 10-6 instead of a 9-5 or 11-7. Well, I quite often had people needing to reach me after normal office hours because I dealt a lot with brides and grooms. And even wedding suppliers who had it as a side business, so they needed to just be able to speak to me after their main job finished. So actually me doing an 11-7 was hugely beneficial for the business because they're phoning up at 6:30 thinking they're just going to get to leave a message, and no, they actually get to speak to me and deal with the problem and get it fixed. So it's sort of finding ways to present it to work colleagues or bosses or whatever, that helps them understand why what you're asking isn't just oh, I quite like it to be like this. It's actually hugely beneficial as well. And there you go. We could do a whole separate one on boundaries as well.
Yay, look forward to that one too.
Amazing. Right, I better let my other half back in the sitting room because this is the only TV in the house behind me.
Okay, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. It was a wonderful session.
You're welcome. See you soon, lovely.
See you soon. Bye.
If you wanna be happy, it's gonna have to be a lifestyle switch. And if you wanna be happy, you're gonna have to do the work indeed. Quick fixes become fancy diets to take back your time and live your life for you. 'Cause if you wanna be happy, it's gonna have to be a lifestyle